let's take the old fake carburetor off and put the new fake carburetor on. But first of all, let's fix these leaky fork seals. Wow, that was quick. Awesome. Right, let's actually get into it. That pipe's gone hard. That must be that quality fuel pipe. Whoop. Ah, this brings back some times, doesn't it? Taking this on and off, trying to get it to work. Never succeeding. Ah, the good old days. Let's see if £244 fixes that. One Shitana carburetor. For the new carb, I'm just going to bolt the slide on with the metering rod where it was set and hope for the best, quite frankly, and adjust from there. The main thing we want to do is see if the new carburetor idles. That's my biggest issue with the old carburetors, is they didn't idle. So if this idles, it'll be an improvement. I don't think, well, maybe the metering rods isn't going to be the biggest issue in that, but we'll play about and see what we can find. And one slightly less Shitana carburetor. I haven't actually done any measurements of this, or this width. So again, let's just hope it fits on there. Lots of pipes, lots of pipes. We are in the inlet, I believe. And the airbox boot. Boom. So it fits on. That's good. Dimension wise, it seems to be the same as the other carburetors. So excellent. We'll measure that up about there. See if it leaks. I can also then set the level of the carburetor too. So it's filling up with fuel. That's always good. Anyway, it's not leaking. So let's set the level of the carb and then we can give it a few kicks. At the very least, it does look quite cool. So, ow, well done. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, it is hitting slightly on the engine casing here. And we'll just reset the throttle slack. Oh yeah, also the choke's on the right side this time, which is nice, especially for this bike, because there's not loads of space. There is where it is quite close to the, well, it's hitting the engine casing. In fact, I'm going to take my coat off now, because I'm sure I'm going to get hot in about 5 seconds anyway. Here we go, choke on. Oh, here we go. I haven't missed this. Couple on the decompressor. Not a bad first kick. And that will be it, I reckon. Fucking hell. Jesus, right, this fucking stand isn't really helping. Okay. Hat off. So yeah, as you can tell by my out of breathness, I've given it a few kicks, but nothing's really happening. It is firing occasionally and ring-tinging, but for a couple of tries and then it dies. So I haven't touched the bike since the last time I ran it, 6 months ago probably, on the last carburetor, which was too rich. So I think I'll take the tank off, take the spark plug out, and check that, because it's probably wet or fouled from the last time. But I think it will run, so yeah, let's do that. It's definitely wet. Right, round two. I have noticed I'm getting a little bit, well, a little very bit low on fuel, which is no bad thing. So if it doesn't start up, we'll put some fresh stuff in there. I definitely need my boot on. All it needs to do is idle. That's all I care about, and then I can mess about with it. Nothing worse than before, if anything. Right, brand new plug this time. The old plug was getting wet straight away, so I've got a funny feeling it is pumping in far too much fuel. But, like I say, I just want to get it running first, and then we can mess about with it. If it does it again to this plug, then we will take it apart and adjust the mixture. So I have unscrewed this metering rod out maybe a turn and a half to make it leaner, because I think it was putting in too much fuel. I have also set the idle on here as well, so the idle, according to the Lectron settings for this carburetor, which is not the same carb obviously, because this is a Canada
Canada. But I've set the slide height now, so it is 2mm from idle, and you adjust it from there. A turn in or a turn out. Any more than that, you then need to adjust the metering rod. So that's all been done, but I've had enough of that now, and it has taken me a little while to do all that and fix all of them issues, which you don't get all of these issues with electric bikes. The people watching this video are not probably going to be into electric bikes, but the point is kind of there, is that I can just hop on that and never, ever, ever have these kinds of issues. Yes, this is through my own fault, but even still, petrol bikes, I do love them, but electric bikes have their time and their place, and that time and place is now, so I'm going for a ride. See ya. We may have had some success. Let's see if it continues. Okay. Well, it was running at some point and idling, but now it has stopped. Whew. Okay. And plug out for the 50th time. It was running quite good.
Right, fuck me, it's working. It's running. I've spent the last, I don't know, 2 days pissing about with it. Changing needle heights, changing needles or metering rods. Positions, new spark plugs, loads of them. I'm not saying it's perfect because I need to get it on the road and test it for sure, but oh, it makes me feel sick on here. I've ended up putting in a slightly fatter metering rod, as once again I think it was massively too rich, and that was fouling the plugs up. I guess that is one of the biggest issues with these carbs, is that you're going from scratch more or less when you get them, so you've got to do a bit of research, a bit of tinkering to get them to even run. Yeah, there we go. Alright, I think it's time for a test, a road test. Let's go. Right, well I made it back, so that's always a plus. Did have to make a few adjustments on the go, which is quite nice actually, that you've got the low end adjustment, the torque jet, and then the power jet as well. You can sort of adjust them as you're going on the fly, really. So I've checked the adjustments on them in terms of screwing them in to see how many turns I am out as I was on the go, because obviously I couldn't really count it as I was going. And they're more or less within the specs that are provided, not by that carb company, by the other one. I can only assume it's there or thereabouts. It is idling now as well, and it starts up first kick now. Now it's hot. So as you can see, it's getting a little bit dark, and I'm sure everyone's sick of hearing this rev up today. So I will wait till tomorrow and then we'll do a proper road test and tune it from there. It's not perfect in terms of the fueling. It's still a bit boggy in places, but the low end seems to be good and the top end is getting better as I'm making adjustments. It's sort of the mid in between. So I'm sure that is between the metering rod adjustment being half or so a turn out and the torque jet as well. So yeah, I'm just going to check the colour of the spark plug, because a lot of the time I was poodling around in second or third gear to try and get the low end sorted out before we can then tune the power jet settings, and then we'll come back to it tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see if it does start tomorrow. Now that we know it starts when it's hot and the fueling is there or thereabouts, it'll be interesting to see if it does start up tomorrow on the choke, first or second kick, and then we can get going again. That was the problem. I thought I got it running okay, just took it up and down the driveway a little bit, and when I went for lunch and came back, it then wouldn't start when it was cold, and then flooded the plugs, etc, etc, etc. It does seem to be a bit of an improvement from what it was. I mean, it hasn't fouled a plug in 10 minutes, so that's good. Yeah, just going to check the colour of it, see what it looks like, and go from there, and we'll resume tomorrow? Wednesday? Thursday. Yeah, we'll resume tomorrow.
Yeah, not bad. It ain't far out anyway, so yeah, we'll come back tomorrow. See ya. Right, so it's now a new day. It's now tomorrow. Let's see if the bike starts up. If it does start up, we know we're in the ballpark of getting the fueling right. I'm going to try it without choke first, and if and when it doesn't work, then put the choke on and hopefully it will start. And then when it does, we can then take it for a proper test ride and tune it to hopefully perfection, or as close as I can get. Okay, well, it did fire. and then nothing. Right, okay, so out of interest, let's just try it with the choke. No, right. There's a new plug in there. I'm going to try it again with no choke. I'm sure it's still too rich. Yeah, so with the new plug, it then started with no choke, so I'm fairly sure it's still too rich. We will, rock you. We'll adjust the metering rod again and see what happens. Right, so I've been pissing about with this carb for days and days and days, probably weeks now, to be honest with you, just trying to get it to run right and idle correctly, and both of them at the same time. That's the hard part. I was having a few issues with this running for short periods of time and then dying for no reason. I just want to check that it isn't the electrical system on the Husqvarna. I did actually end up redoing the whole loom on here with new wires because it's not a particularly complex loom, and because of the aftermarket ignition system I've got on this, there wasn't a load of wires anyway, so I've taken the wires off for the headlight, for the front and rear headlight, because I don't need them or use them, so just eliminate them. I've just got the kill switch plumbed in, new kill switch button as well, cleaned up all the earths, cleaned up the coil, new spark plug cap, new spark plug, new air filter. So yeah, by process of elimination, we're trying to make sure that this is the problem. So, Christ, ow! So what I have done is bolt on the original Lectron, which I bought for this bike, and I had messed about with the rod setting on this, so I've just set it up to the base spec that Lectron give you, which for that carb and that metering rod is 3.5 turns in from the last thread showing. So yeah, I just want to see if it idles and runs how it should do. If this doesn't work, then there's a problem elsewhere with the bike. So I want to give the red carburetor a fair chance, but this is the only way round that, I think. It's now raining as well, but it's not so bad because I've kicked this over so many times. I do get quite hot quite quickly. Here's my wiring loom. Obviously these ones aren't used, they're going to be for the headlights, but yeah, new plugs, new wires, new kill switch. I've relocated the CDR unit, and then a few bits in there, but anyway, that's boring and it's raining, so let's see if it actually starts. I'll put the choke on. For the sake of, it is probably a little bit cold now. There's one downside of that carb, is the choke is on the wrong side, if you like, so I remember that being a bit of a pain to get to, but if you're quick you can do it before the exhaust gets hot and burns you. Anyway, oh, rain. Right, well, that's kind of summed it up for me, really. Base settings, no tuning at all. Starting first or second kick from cold. Is idling fine. And I'm 99% sure if I take it around the field now or take it up the road now, it will run fine as well. So, somewhat unfortunately, but also not shockingly, I'm fairly sure these don't work. I don't believe it! A Chinese clone carburetor not working how it's supposed to be? I'm shocked. That was the float bowl running out of fuel because I left the tap off. So, there we go. Just a quick performance test on how the Lectron should, and I expect will, perform.
Yeah, it seems to run well. I was going to go a little bit richer on the power jet. It seems a little bit flat up top, but I haven't really got the space to go flat out yet. But it's a 100% improvement on the on what we had already. Yeah, that's better. Cool, so there we go. I hope that gives you an idea of how it should run and how the Lectrons run straight out of the box. Well, in fact, worse than straight out of the box. I got a bit excited then, and when I looked back, I'd lost the microphone off the rear of the bike, as I was half expecting to. Now just got to try and search to see where it was. I found a bolt. That looks like it belongs to me, so that's good. I did think it was a pretty bad idea putting it on there, but it held up for a little while. Now thinking of it, it's probably got some audio on there from all of this, so it's probably quite important that I do find it. Good stuff, good stuff. Rightio, so now we've established that the bike is not the issue, or the electrical system. We now have to look at this again. I have lowered the float level. You can see the lower mark and upper mark there, and it is sat basically right in between that. We know it's not the float level, which is the issue. Well, the float level is where it should be. Whether it is the issue or not is a different story. It does always look very wet inside here as well, and always did. It is acting as if it is running out of fuel, as in the float level is getting too low, and then the bike is then cutting out. But we know the float level is fine. What I'm going to do is just check where the pickup is for the actual fuel level itself. Now I'm fairly sure it is right at the bottom of the carb. If that is the case, the float level is fine anyway, so again we know that isn't the issue. So it's just a matter of deduction to try and work out why the carb isn't running properly. I'm fairly sure we know why anyway. Drain the fuel out of it and possibly take the bowl off just to see where the pickup is for the fuel. So yeah, you can see these holes in here. This is at the very bottom of the float bowl, so the fuel level in the float bowl will have to get down and below these holes for it not to run properly, and that isn't the case when it's attached to the bike, so I'm confident that the float level is not the issue here. We're back on this today. It's been a week or so since I've last messed about with this. Quite frankly, I had enough of kicking it over all the time. I just want to take the float bowl off though and check this pickup. Now we know the pickup is at the very bottom of the float bowl here, so in terms of the float level it won't be a problem. What I have ran into is the bike will idle for 2 seconds and then cut off again. So I just want to check the pickup whilst I'm here, and also just have a think about the floats as well, because the movement in there, I'm not sure if you can see it, but as we turn it upside down, that movement there is all we've got in the floats. They had to be that low to get them between that level, so I just want to have a think about these and see if there's any other way. Now I don't think that will be a problem, and ultimately as long as the fuel doesn't run out, the float height should not be a problem anyway, and the fuel doesn't run out, it is just not idling. I'm also going to inspect the hole, the metering rod hole in here too, whilst it's out. I'm just going to put the metering rod down there and see how much of a gap, if any, I'm sure we will, how much of a gap we have around that hole here. Because these are not machined properly, I fear that it's going to be messing up the fueling, making it harder to get running and tune than what it would be, even because of what it is, basically. So I think it's probably complicating things. So I do wonder if the floats are possibly the wrong density. I mean, almost definitely, but to get the fuel level where it should be in the float bowl, the floats have to be that low. As you can see, when we put the float bowl on, the floats are actually hitting the bottom of the bowl. There we go. And like I say, I don't think this will really matter, because as long as there's fuel in the float bowl, it should run anyway. So we've got two parts to this float bowl / pickup assembly here. The bottom half goes through the bottom of the float bowl with no ring to seal, like that, and the top half then screws onto it like so. Now, funny enough, what I've just noticed, it would make sense for these holes to be lined up.
there's 4 holes in the top half and 4 holes in the bottom half. When I took it off, they were not lined up. Because of the way it sits in the float bowl, in there, I wonder if that could be a reason. So we'll just look at how they align and if we can align them when we screw them together. You can see even when that is just finger tight, the holes are definitely not aligned there. So we'll look at it to see how it fits in the float bowl. That essentially then sits on the bottom of this O-ring here, on the what we'll call the fuel tube. That is definitely your fuel pickup on there, because if them holes are not aligned, fuel is going to struggle to get through there and be sucked up into the carburetor. Yeah, so even when that is just about finger tight really, I'd say that's probably tight enough to seal against the fuel coming out. You can see how misaligned these holes are in here. There's only about half of the pickup hole showing through this collar. There's not going to be enough room to screw that down and open these holes fully up. So these holes have been machined wrong or drilled wrong to begin with. Maybe we will try and modify these holes to open them up. So maybe that was restricting our fuel and not allowing it to start and idle properly. And maybe we were trying to tune around this. Right, straight away, it again is definitely too large, because the genuine metering rod is almost an interference fit with the fuel tube here. So obviously it slides in there, but you almost have to tap it down to get it to fit in there, which is how it should be if the tolerances are correct. This one will just fall through. They have not yet mastered the art of machining precise holes for these metering rods, and the metering rod carbs do require precise machining to work by their nature. You can maybe get a slightly better idea of it here on the threaded part, which is fully circular as opposed to sort of cut out on the back and the front. But you can see even on this part, when we move it about, how much gap there is all the way around on there. That should be a tolerance of almost nothing to allow no fuel there, where fuel is definitely going to be sucked up past that, bypassing the rod circuit and making it run incorrectly, and almost impossible to tune out. Obviously still don't understand how critical they are to metering rod carburetors as well. Right, let me have a think about this, and then we will decide what to do. So in summary, do these carburetors work? No is the short answer to that. They're slightly better / more expensive and more adjustable than these fake clone carburetors, because they have the torque screw adjuster there. So when they don't run properly, you can half tune around that to get it to run okay throughout the rev ranges. They're not any better, and they do cost a lot more money. However, I've decided that I am going to try and fix the issues with this carburetor, because I've had a few ideas, so we'll talk about that in a second. It does save the issue of it being bolted in, of having to try and press the fuel tube out of this carburetor and then machine a new one up, which I can't do. And would it work anyway? Possibly, I don't know. If you just want a carburetor to bolt onto your bike and run and work and create better power delivery, and not necessarily more power, I don't know if the Lectrons create more power or not. Like I said, I don't really care. And the bike that I'm testing it on isn't short of power or torque. So I just want a carburetor that works and is easy to tune, and the Lectrons certainly are that. Or metering rod carbs, full stop, certainly are that compared to jetted carburetors, which is the point of why I bought it in the first place. At the very basic levels, having to remove the float bowl or drain the float bowl, remove the float bowl to then get to the jets, to then put a new jet in, to then put the float bowl back on, and then refill it, and then it will be wrong or whatever, and then do all that again, rather than on metering rod carburetors, you can just take the slide out, adjust the rod from there. They are not a particularly complicated carburetor in the way they work. Obviously, there is a lot of science with the metering rod and the holes, etc., and the grinds on the rods and stuff like that. This is why I'm confident that this has an issue, because even when the genuine Lectron is running as bad as it can possibly be, it still runs. You can then tune that to make it better. These don't run at the best of times. They're so temperamental in terms of when they do run. Because I was doing a lot of pissing about with it and getting it hot and then cold, etc., it may work in some of them circumstances, but it doesn't work in all of the circumstances, which I know is why it's the carburetor. Obviously, we've tested that by putting the genuine Lectron on, and it will run hot, cold. We know that the bike is not the issue, it's the carburetor that is the issue. So even if these were running bad, it wouldn't be a problem, because then you can then tune around that and know if you need to go up or down, richer or leaner on the rod, or even a different rod or different settings. But when they don't run, and then do run and then don't run, there's so many factors of what it could be. You're trying to tune around something which you don't really know what the problem is, because of the inherent problems with this carburetor and the other fake carburetors as well. You're never going to get them running right without pissing about with them, basically. Are they worth it? No. I would still either have a jetted carburetor over this, and we will probably do a separate video on a clone probable PWK carb, because that's what the comments keep on mentioning, is that PWK carbs are better than metering rod carbs. So I will probably get one and see how it goes, basically, to see if that is true or not. I still stand by the fact that I think Lectrons, in terms of getting a carburetor, genuine Lectrons, getting a carburetor out of the box when you order it from either Lectron in the USA or an official supplier, like where I got mine from in the UK, getting out of the box and bolting it onto your bike and having it work and start is an amazing feat. So I by no means advocate buying Chinese carburetors for the main part that they don't work, let alone that they are not ripping off ideas, because if Lectron didn't have trademarks in China, then that's their own fault, if you like. That's their own problem. But for me, these fake carburetors are not an issue for Lectron because they don't work. So I don't think they have much to be worried about. Yes, it may look good on the outside and it's nice and shiny and that. If fundamentally the carburetor does not work, then they aren't going to last for very long, are they? And videos like this explaining why they don't work are hopefully going to have an influence of why, yes, the genuine carburetors are expensive, but they're expensive for a reason, And it is very simple. I know I keep saying it, but you do get what you pay for. For example, I emailed this supplier that I bought this from with a very basic question of tuning, just to see what they said back about it. But I made a scenario where the carburetor was running rich. In an ideal world, this is without all the issues that are actually happening with the carburetor, but just an idea of a story of it running rich. And what I would need to do is basically lower the metering rod. That would be the advice. Lower the metering rod and try it again, basically. When I sent that to them, their response was, if you don't know how to tune it, go to a garage. So the sellers themselves do not understand the carburetors and how they work, and probably also don't ride motorbikes because they have no passion for what they sell and no idea of what they sell. They just go, this is expensive, we'll copy that and sell it for £200, basically. The sellers of these carburetors also, you can tell they have no idea about what they're selling or what they do or what bikes they fit, etc. Because they do list both of these carburetors on various listings for both 2-strokes and 4-strokes in the model listings that they state. So that's when you know they have no idea of what they are selling or their experience or their expertise with carburetors, because they don't understand the differences between the 2-stroke and the 4-stroke. One carb for a 2-stroke is not going to work on a 4-stroke and vice versa. The second you see that, it should be enough for you to go, this isn't going to work anyway. If you want to buy them types of products and hope they're going to work in comparison to the genuine things, then more fool you, really, because they don't work properly, obviously. But if you expect them to work for that money, when that is the advice when they give you, they could have Googled it and told me it, but they didn't. They just said, go and see a garage. That was the most basic question that I could think of, and they still didn't give an answer to it, where the genuine Lectron support is there if you need it. Most of the time, again, you don't need it because the product works out of the box, and as long as you do a little bit of research, you can then tune it yourself, and it's good to learn about these things anyway. Tune it yourself within half a turn in or out, and you're pretty much going to be the best you're going to get, more or less. So yeah, that's the difference. When I then said there is a problem with the carburetor in terms of the fuel rod has been machined incorrectly and is never going to work due to the design of these, they came back with we don't understand what you mean. So that sums it up, really. When you buy a product like that, they don't have any idea of what they're selling or any idea of how to fix issues that you're going to have with these. So if you want to buy from a seller like that, then good for you, or bad for you. I have no problem with Chinese products as they are, or products from anywhere else for that matter, as long as they work and do the job which they are intended for, which these don't. Jetted carburetors are maybe a lot simpler to produce because ultimately it's the jets that does the fueling. So as long as they can machine a semi-decent M5 or M6 thread into the car bodies, you can then change the jets yourself to make your mixture where you want it. Metering rod carburetors do require a lot more precise engineering and machining, which the manufacturers of these carburetors do not have at the minute. They don't have access or the skills required to make machining bits like this and the metering rods accurate enough where they're going to work. Yeah, you can't really compare the metering rod carburetors to jetted carburetors, clone or not, because they are two very different things in the world of carburetors. Obviously, they are both carburetors and they both do a job, a simple job. But when you break it down into fundamentals, metering rod carburetors are a lot harder to manufacture due to the tolerances needed for things like this. So, going back to this carburetor, I've decided as I have it now, and it's very unlikely that it will be refunded or returned because of the way the sellers work, that I am going to try and fix the issues with this carburetor, or at least have a go, because I have it here now. The drain screw / fuel pickup is easy enough to fix. We can drill these holes up a little bit, so as we screw this down, the holes on the top cap will then meet the holes in the bottom cap. This part is going to be an interesting one. Now, I could get one machined, but I probably wouldn't want to get 3 machined in different sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and 3D print this. The best thing about that is I can change the tolerances as I need them. So if it is too big, within 10 seconds I can create a new model and make the hole in the middle smaller. So hopefully we can get the correct fit for the metering rod, where it then becomes a proper fit in there rather than loose like that. I'm going to do them 2 bits and revisit this carburetor, but I'm going to do it in a separate video. In short, is it worth it? No. Can it be fixed? Possibly so. So we will see. Would I buy one again? No. Would I recommend you to buy one and expect it to work? Not going to happen. Anything else? Buy a genuine Lectron if you want a carb to just bolt on and be done with it. There's other manufacturers available. Is a PWK carb better? We'll find out soon. Other than that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, see you next time.